Boy, they look nice.
Thank you so much.
Good day. Thank you very much.
It's truly an honor to be in your presence today. Thank you very much. All the way.
That patch looks nice. I'd like to see one of them.
I'll get you that, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service, sir. Honor to meet you.
Same to you. Thank you, Minister.
The twilight does gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars, the perilous high, o'er the ramparts we watched, so gallantly streaming, and the rockets that flare, the bombs bursting in air, gave through the night, and our flag was still there. Oh, sing us that star-spangled banner yet wave, o'er the land of the free, and the home of the
3,909 miles west of Normandy, France, this memorial has been built on top of a consecrated mixture of Bedford soil and Normandy sand. Though not a memorial service in the strict sense, this program is solemn nonetheless. It has two distinct components. The first, establishing the historical, for the second. The historical excerpts you will hear will give you a broad view of the watershed of the last century, the great event. It's our hope that after hearing what's said, you will find yourself wanting to learn much, much more. As our narrative today unfolds, it will become plain its subject is not so much war, but rather the character of those who fought in it.
On the afternoon, the evening of June 5th, General Dwight D. Eisenhower, Supreme Commander of the Allied Expeditionary Forces, gave this speech and this pep talk to elements of the 82nd Airborne and the 101st Airborne. Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, you are about to embark upon the great crusade for which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts, you will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world. Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well-trained, well-equipped, and battle-hardened. He will fight savagely. But this is the year 1944. Much has happened since the Nazi triumphs of 1940-41. The United Nations have inflicted upon the Germans great defeats in open battle, man-to-man. Our air offensive has seriously reduced their strength in the air and their capacity to wage war on the ground. Our home fronts have given us an overwhelming superiority in weapons and munitions of war and placed at our disposal great reserves of trained fighting men. The tide is turned. The free men of the world are marching together to victory. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck, and let us beseech the blessing of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking.
You know it's getting close to daylight, and it's getting close to the time to go. Then one man gets airsick and pulls his steel helmet off to heave into it. And then everyone else down the line follows suit. Everyone is heaving, dry heaves, waiting to get out of that airplane. We're all sick, and the plane stinks, and we're ready to get out any time. Let's get the green light on and get out of this place. When the time came to go, out the door we went. We were happy to get out of the thing, so off we went. Yes, I was afraid. I was 19 years old and afraid.
Just as my chute opened, I looked down to the right and saw the plane was going down in flames. It crashed before I landed, maybe a mile or 2 miles away. I looked around, but couldn't see any other parachutes in the sky. I landed in a field with a big pond in the middle of it. A couple of guys landed after me in the pond, but it wasn't very deep, and we had no trouble getting them out. We had these damn cricket things, and you could hear crickets all over the place, but I couldn't tell which were the real crickets and which were the tin things. We finally found 7 guys of the 13 who were on the plane. I don't know what happened to the rest, whether they didn't get out or whether they went in the opposite direction or what. I don't know. So that's what we ended up with, 8 out of 13.
Shortly before 6 o'clock, the eerie silence was shattered by a deafening roar. The big guns of the heavy bombardment cruiser had opened up. We wondered how the Frenchmen in the light cruisers Georges Legue and Montcalm felt as they hurled bullets on their homeland. For the rest of us, it was an inspiring spectacle. And for this spectator, personally, it was a scene filled with emotion and pride. Among those great ships was the U.S. battleship Nevada. And as I watched her big 14-inch guns belching forth fire and smoke, my mind went back 2.5 years to Pearl Harbor and another scene. At that time, we watched in horror as the Nevada foundered helplessly in the channel while taking a terrible mauling from the bombs of the Japanese aircraft.
Sergeant Cecil Breeden, A Company, 116th Infantry, 29th Division, Omaha Beach. Every man was a hero. Never saw a coward. When I found Hal Baumgarten, he had his cheek about over his ear. I patched him up and went on my way. I glanced now and then at the boys trying to take the pillbox. A machine gun crew was attacking us. As I remember, it took 5 or 6 to do it. As far as I know, none of them lived. I couldn't tell you who any of them were. I was just too busy to know what was going on around me. I remember patching up Butch, the A Company mail clerk, and Lieutenant Ray Nance. Then Big Bill Presley, a master sergeant from B Company, came by, and I asked him what he was doing. He said, looking for a rifle that'll work. Pointing up the hill, he said he had some men up there. Then he told me to get down, or I was going to get hit. I said, what in the world are you talking about? You're a darn sight bigger target than me. He just grinned and went on up the beach. Soon he came back with the rifle and waved and went on.
Dr. J.H. Patterson, Royal Army Medical Corps, Medical Officer, No. 4 Commando, Sword Beach. We were rolling heavily in a big southwest swell which broke continually over us, drenching us to the skin. My hands grew numb and dead, and my teeth were chattering with cold and fright. I had a look at my orderly. He was looking awful, but gave me a grin through his green. It was 0 hour, and the 1st Infantry were going in. We passed around the run and those who were not seasick took a good swig. The chaps in the other boats were passing round the rum, and I could hear snitches of song through the hellish din. Hutchie Burke's boat went in singing Jerusalem.
Lieutenant Hugh Bone, 2nd East Yorkshire Regiment, Gold Beach. There were some horrible sights there, and not a few men calling for help. I wanted to pull a body out of the waves, but he looked to be dead, and I had no time or duty there. The beach medical people would gradually get round to them all. Under the side of a tank that had been hit, I saw a bunch of my people, and I bawled at them to get up and get moving, since they were doing no good there and could quite safely get along to HQ. I felt a little callous when I found that nearly all of them had been hit, and some were dead.
This is D-Day, General Eisenhower said to the French people. Stiff fighting will come now, but after this, the victory. The year 1944 is the year of complete victory. Good luck. Oh, Kitty, the best part of the invasion is that I have the feeling that friends are approaching. We have been oppressed by those terrible Germans for so long. They have had their knives at our throats that the thought of friends and deliverance fills us with confidence. Now it doesn't concern the Jews anymore. No, it concerns Holland and all occupied Europe. Perhaps I may yet be able to go back to school in September or October. Yours, Anne.
When people argue about women being in combat, I think how silly they are, because we already were. In France, we had 88mm artillery flying right over our heads. It was unsettling to hear the 88s, but we figured this is what war was like. Our first destination wasn't really captured by the Americans for about a month after we landed, so we moved several times.
So many places and times to secure these gifts. May they also be grateful, humble, and may they preserve the legacy of those who served and sacrificed for the generations that followed their own.
Our history is deeply tied to the gift of freedom because of our military connection. Perhaps in no place in this country or Commonwealth is that gift so profoundly felt and so solemnly remembered as the town of Bedford. The town of Bedford, where 34 soldiers from the Virginia National Guard companies at Virginia National Guards, Company A, 116th Infantry Regiment, landed on Omaha Beach 70 years ago today. 19 of those 34 men would give their lives on that day, June 6, 1944. 4 more would give their lives before the Normandy operation completed. And the memorial where we stand today is testament not only to the sacrifices of all Allied service members, but also as we look out over this beautiful countryside and the town of Bedford to the legacy of its veterans and its families.
In the cold mist of that grey morning, the powerful armada of Operation Overlord, the largest amphibious operation of all times, brought the liberators to the soil of France. Omar, Utah, Juno, Gold, Sword, the code names given to the beaches still echo as synonyms of ultimate sacrifice for the sake of freedom, a freedom paid dearly indeed. In the evening of June 6, over 10,000 boys who were not even 20 years old for most of them, fell in the sand, never to rise again. They rest on French soil forever, alongside the Allied brothers in arms. Among them were the very brave boys from Bedford, your town, which paid such a heavy price. They were young men in the prime of their lives. They served their country and its core values in the world's most powerful and well-trained military. But they were also good sons, boyfriends, and nephews who had left behind their homes. Their future was stolen from them by a faraway war. Yet, what they fought for were the universal values of freedom and democracy. In defending a battered Europe under Nazi occupation, they defended the very foundations of their own nation as well as their country's collective past and future. They joined forces with the French resistance fighters who had secretly paved the way for the landing on D-Day. In a few weeks, they would liberate Paris, and in a few months, all of France, thus opening the path to final victory. Ladies and gentlemen, France has not forgotten the sacrifice of your loved ones and of the tens of thousands who perished. Thanks to them, the ideals upon which our two nations have been founded remain the solid basis of our societies. They also remain the fundamental inspiration of the unique French-American friendship and alliance which transcends centuries. On behalf of the French people, allow me to say, thank you, America. We will never forget what you sons did to make us free again. We are deeply indebted and grateful for their sacrifice.
It is an honor to be here with you today of all days and in this place of all places. I'm going to ask my wife to make some remarks for me. Thank you very much.
On D-Day, there were 30 men on my landing craft. As we neared the beach, the British coxswain said, "I cannot go any further. I've got to drop the ramp." He couldn't go any further because of the mines and the poles in the water, and if we hit one, the entire boat would blow up. He dropped the ramp, and Captain Zapakoska was the first man off. They cut him down at the end of the ramp, and he fell into the water. My friend Sergeant Dick Wright was second. They got him too. I was fourth, and the sea was rough. The boat was bouncing up and down, and somehow I got thrown off to the side. When I got away from the boat, I looked back, and everyone was being cut down. When I got out of the water and looked around, that was Dick Wright, my sergeant. He said, "Sails, help me." I tried to crawl over to him, and he raised up on his elbows to try to holler to me, and when he did, a sniper shot him in the head. I knew I was next. I buried my face in the sand and waited. I sang the 23rd Psalms a few times, but that did not get me. I laid there for about 30 minutes and then began to crawl my way up the beach. I crawled little by little, using body for protection. They were screaming and hollering. It was one of the worst things I've seen in my entire life. That was my D-Day. After 6 months of combat, the war ended for me. I was blown out of a tank and spent the next year and a half in a hospital. I lost some of my sight, and though my other physical wounds were healed, the pain of losing so many comrades has never gone away. Company B of the 116th Infantry of the 19th Division lost 113 men during the war. I tell you my story because it is on our hands as veterans and as citizens to preserve the legacy of those who were there. Long after the loss of us has rejoiced the ranks, we have to make sure that there might never come a day when June the 6th means no more than any other day, that there might never be a generation of Americans for whom the name Normandy means nothing at all. 70 years ago has passed since our generation gathered in the air and on the sea and sands of Normandy. Yet here we are, gathered today, joined by 3 generations, more to pay homage to our brothers in arms.
Thank you.